Chinese continue to say that the U.S. and China are not engaged in any consultation or negotiation on tariffs. You recently said you've talked to your counterpart, but more about, quote, traditional things like financial stability. So can you clarify, is the administration talking to Beijing specifically about tariffs or not?
Well, we're not going to talk about who's talking to whom, but I think that, over time we will see that the Chinese tariffs are unsustainable for China. I've seen some very large numbers over the past few days that show if these numbers stay on, Chinese could lose 10 million jobs very quickly. The onus will be on them to take off these tariffs. They're unsustainable for them.
And they are saying you guys are not talking about it. So is that true?
Look, they have a different form of government. They're playing to a different audience. So I'm not going to get into the nitty-gritty again of who's talking to whom. But as I said, I believe for the Chinese, these tariffs are unsustainable.
And very quickly, 2 days ago, you said you didn't know if President Trump had spoken to Xi Jinping. Do you know now?
Again, I would say Caroline and I have a lot of jobs around the White House. Running the switchboard isn't one of them.
This administration works hard to embarrass themselves on a daily basis. Scott Bessent wasn't prepared to answer basic questions about the president's flat-out lies about negotiating with China. It's really amateur hour.
Do you know of any trade agreements that they are close to actually closing it out, and not just top lines, a memorandum of understanding?
Well, I know that they're very focused in taking a look at those 35, who is ready to come to the table. The top half of those 35 have been broken into 3 tiers, and these folks are working around the clock over the weekends to get trade deals. And I think for President Trump, you're going to see one trade deal after another announced. When you start walking through 100 announcements with 100 different countries, and every single one of those we end up with a better trade deal than we have right now. I mean, how could anybody say that's not a good deal for this country? But again, the courage to actually take on a completely unfair global trading system. It takes, President Trump was courageous in his first term. Now he's fearless this time around, and he's fearless in fighting for every American, because these things will benefit our economy and will benefit every American.
I mean, he's arguing that he's made 200 trade deals so far.
Well, there is all kinds of countries, that are showing up at the doorstep because they understand America is serious about leveling the trade issues right now.
The MAGA playbook, when faced with answering for Trump's lies, is to keep promising the same bullshit before praising him for telling the lie in the first place. And when that doesn't work, just lash out like a baby.
So it was reported this morning that Amazon will soon display a little number next to the price of each product that shows how much the Trump tariffs are adding to the cost of each product. So isn't that a perfect, crystal clear demonstration that it's the American consumer and not China who is going to have to pay for these policies?
I will take this, since I just got off the phone with the president about Amazon's announcement. This is a hostile and political act by Amazon. Why didn't Amazon do this when the Biden administration hiked inflation to the highest level in 40 years? And I would also add that it's not a surprise, because as Reuters recently wrote, Amazon has partnered with a Chinese propaganda arm. So this is another reason why Americans should buy American. It's another reason why we are onshoring critical supply chains here at home to shore up our own critical supply chain and boost our own manufacturing here.
Is Jeff Bezos still a Trump supporter?
Look, I will not speak to the president's relationships with Jeff Bezos, but I will tell you that this is certainly a hostile and political action by Amazon.
Oh, I can tell you why Amazon didn't post the effect of tariffs on the price of everything people order when Biden was in office. Because the Biden administration didn't slap a 145% tariff on China. And I wonder how Jeff Bezos feels about his attempt to get in good with Trump, only to be called hostile once his business starts to suffer under the weight of Trump's stupidity. Amazon's reaction to Trump's attack on regular American consumers also forced UPS to take a step back too, because on Tuesday, it'll cut 20,000 jobs and shut 73 facilities to lower costs in an uncertain economy and to brace for a potential pullback from its largest customer, Amazon. Such a significant step makes UPS the first big U.S. company to respond through large-scale layoffs to slowing trade as a result of the sweeping tariffs by the Trump administration. The company declined to provide any update to its full-year outlook due to the economic uncertainty, even as it cuts jobs, shuts warehouses, increases automation, and sells assets. The administration can bring up Joe Biden while they whine and cry, but the domino effect of Trump's economic policies is clearly understood by consumers.
As far as his approval rating, I want to finish off with this. This is President Trump's job approval rating on taxes, 38% approve, 53% disapprove. This is Fox News polling. 38% on the economy approve, 56% disapprove, 33% on inflation. We know this was huge in the election, 59% disapprove. The short-term pain people are feeling reflected in the polls, but will they hang in there, Robert, to see what is promised as long-term gain?
Yeah, let me be quick here. I mean, one, Steve knows a tariff is a tax on the consumer. Yes, it brings revenues, but it's not a tax cut to the consumer. So that's just not true. And Steve's actually written about that, as has Kevin Hassett. With respect to the three-legged stool, I think with short-term pain, you're seeing it in the polls. People don't know really what's going on. Things are actually, some prices are going up, some are going down. This is not actually the immediate, great economy that the president spoke about. Actually, half the economists thinks we're going into a recession.
Sugarcoating the reality of higher costs and fewer jobs while the guy in charge golfs every weekend isn't working. And that was a Fox News poll that the anchor really didn't want to read.
As far as his approval rating, I want to finish off with this. This is President Trump's job approval rating on taxes, 38% approve, 53% disapprove. This is Fox News polling.
And she was like, damn, do I really have to read these? I mean, these are Fox News polls, by the way, Mr. President. It's not my fault. So now the spin has to go from claiming tariffs and higher prices are great to claiming that his disastrous approval numbers aren't even a problem.
He has the lowest approval rating of any president in the last 80 years, according to the Washington Post, ABC News, and Ipsos, I believe. Other polls suggest similarly low numbers. How do you interpret those numbers, and is that not a sign that your conference, your party, your leader need to be changing course given those low record ratings?
No, look, there's always in any new administration, it's a roller coaster, right? When you come in and you make dramatic change, which is what he did, he's delivering on the promises made. There's some bumps along the road. We're changing everything. As we said, when President Trump was running, I told him and we told our own voters he could be the most consequential president of the modern era. Now the media all of you are acknowledging that is true. By extension, we can be the most consequential Congress as well, because we quite literally have to fix every area of public policy. The last 4 years was an absolute unmitigated disaster, and we got to fix it all. So when you're doing that, it's disruptive in a way, and in the early initial people, they have an emotional reaction sometimes for the big changes, but what they're seeing and what the real polling is showing is that they understand that we're headed somewhere. This is out of the gates, all these big achievements that we just recounted. And I said, we're just getting started. The president's approval rating is better than it was in 2017 when he got started, right? Because people trust him.
No, they don't. Mike Johnson's following that same playbook from earlier. Repeat the obvious lie that everyone's aware of, then praise Trump for telling it. But he added an extra one for good measure by claiming his approval numbers are better than where they were at this point in his first term. But that's not true either, as he's actually broken his own record of sucking at this. But instead of addressing reality and working to reverse course, the plan is to just keep lying.
The liberal polls, they're all fake polls. The nightly news broadcasts are awful. They're all, beating up on Trump. How do you rank his first 100 days, Senator Tuberville? Nice, easy question. 100 days. What do you think?
A+. What else can he do, Larry? They left it in a total mess. I was up here for 4 years of Joe Biden. They did not do one thing for the American people or for this country. They actually tried to destroy it, and everything went down. Now President Trump has got foreign wars. He's got deportations, the border, the tax cuts. He's trying to save the economy. What a total disaster the Democrats created, and they're on the steps of the Capitol, kumbaya and all this kind of stuff going on, and they make absolutely no sense of what's happened, and they don't have a clue how to fix anything, so they're just trying to create problems.
The dumbest senator in the country, Tommy Tuberville, couldn't remember the normal standard order of repeating Trump's lies before going on to praise him and then blame Joe Biden with some fantasy scenario to keep supporters misinformed. They really do go on these interviews for the sole purpose of pleasing Trump, completely ignoring the growing realization from people that this is all his fault. There's only a minority of supporters that can still sustain themselves off of kissing Trump's ass while the world falls apart around them. And his transportation secretary here was very busy spit-shotting it for the 30% that are still hanging on. It really was actually very embarrassing.
I got to tell you, the joy of this is to work with President Trump, to see how hard he works, the vision that he has, how fearless he is. Whether it's, I mean, it's not. I think presidents over the last 30, 40 years should have dealt with trade in America. They're all too afraid. They're all afraid of markets. They're all afraid of their big business donors who give them, millions of dollars. Not Donald Trump. He's like, I'm going to fix this for the American people. And he takes on fights that most politicians don't. They're the right fights, but they're politically afraid. This president doesn't, and it gives us a lot of grace to do the wonderful things that haven't been done in the past.
Well,